Hey there! Today, we're looking into one of the most interesting parts of the cell, its membrane. This thin yet powerful structure controls what goes in and out, maintaining the cell's integrity. Without it, cells wouldn't survive. So, let's break it down and explore its structure, components, and functions. The cell membrane, also known as the plasma membrane, is the outer boundary of the cell. It's flexible, about 10 nanometers thick, and plays a crucial role in protection, shape maintenance, and transport of substances. But what is it made of? Let's take a closer look. The main structure of the membrane is the lipid bilayer. Imagine it like a sandwich. It has two layers of phospholipids, which are made up of a phosphate group, a glycerol backbone, and two fatty acid tails. The glycerol backbone acts like a connector. It holds the phosphate head and the fatty acid tails together, giving the phospholipid its structure. Each phospholipid has a hydrophilic or water-loving head, which is the phosphate group, and hydrophobic or water-fearing tails, which are the fatty acids. One of the tails is usually saturated, meaning it's straight, while the other is often unsaturated, meaning it has a double bond that causes a kink or bend in the tail. This kink keeps the membrane fluid, preventing the phospholipids from packing too tightly together. The heads face outward, touching water, while the tails hide inside. This arrangement is called the hydrophobic interaction, making the membrane semi-permeable, allowing only lipid-soluble molecules to pass through easily. This selective permeability is crucial in maintaining homeostasis. But the cell membrane isn't just a simple barrier. It's more like a fluid mosaic, a dynamic structure made up of different components that all move around laterally like a liquid. In this fluid mosaic model, the membrane isn't rigid. Instead, the phospholipids can move freely, giving the membrane flexibility and even self-repair mechanisms. If the membrane gets disturbed, the lipids can rearrange themselves to fix any damage. This flexibility also allows cells to change shape, which is important for processes like endocytosis and exocytosis, where the cell engulfs or expels substances. Next up, cholesterol. These molecules are scattered within the bilayer, and their job, regulating fluidity. At moderate levels, cholesterol makes the membrane more rigid, but at high levels, it increases fluidity. So, it helps the membrane adapt to different conditions. Without cholesterol, cell membranes could become too fragile or too rigid, disrupting essential functions like nutrient absorption and waste removal. Aside from that, cholesterol also helps prevent the membrane from becoming too permeable. Without it, small molecules might pass through too easily, causing imbalances inside the cell. Now, let's talk about proteins, the real workforce of the membrane. There are two types of proteins in the membrane, namely integral proteins, which are deeply embedded and act as transporters, receptors, and enzymes. Peripheral proteins, which are loosely attached and help in cell signaling and structural support. These proteins handle everything, from allowing nutrients in, sending signals, supporting structure, to recognizing foreign invaders. For example, transport proteins create channels or pumps that allow molecules to pass through the membrane, while receptor proteins detect signals like hormones and trigger responses inside the cell. Adhesion proteins help cells stick together to form tissues, and enzymes speed up biochemical reactions at the membrane surface. Another important function of membrane proteins is their role in immune recognition. Integral membrane proteins, such as major histocompatibility complex or MHC proteins, and cluster of differentiation or CD markers, act as identification tags for cells. These proteins allow the immune system to recognize cells and distinguish them from foreign invaders, helping to prevent autoimmune responses. Lastly, we have carbohydrates forming the glycocalyx, a sugar coating around the cell. These molecules give the cell a negative charge, repelling other negatively charged objects, help cells stick together through adhesion, serve as receptor for communication, and play a role in immune responses. This sugar layer is like a cell's ID card. It allows immune cells to recognize friendly cells and attack harmful invaders. It also contributes to wound healing by helping cells communicate with each other. Additionally, the glycocalyx plays a role in protection. In some cells, like those lining the blood vessels, it reduces friction, preventing damage from blood flow. In bacteria, it forms a protective capsule that enhances survival. So, what have we learned? The cell membrane is a dynamic, multifunctional structure made of a lipid bilayer, proteins, and carbohydrates. It controls what enters and exits, keeps the cell stable, enables communication, and defends against foreign invaders. Without a functioning membrane, a cell wouldn't be able to survive. Understanding the cell membrane is essential because it helps us grasp how drugs work, how diseases like cancer develop, and how scientists create treatments. Membrane studies are even helping in drug delivery systems. That wraps up our lecture on the cell membrane. But before I let you go, let me share with you a song about the cell membrane that will help you remember about its structure, components, and functions. The cell membrane's important, E-I-E-I-O. It keeps things in while keeping some out, E-I-E-I-O. With a lipid here and the protein there, cholesterol, carbohydrates keep it square, provide safety and protection, E-I-E-I-O. The lipids form a bilayer, E-I-E-I-O. Hydrophilic heads love water, hydrophobic tails don't. With a head up here and the tail down here, selecting what comes in and out. The membrane's fluid everywhere, E-I-E-I-O. The membrane is important, right? E-I-E-I-O. It keeps the cell from being a mess, E-I-E-I-O. With lipids, proteins, carbs combined, working together, they are the cell membrane significant, E-I-E-I-O. That's it for today. If you found this helpful, don't forget to share with your classmates. See you in the next lesson.